from the broadcast studio, hitting in the static. This ain't no bedtime story, son, it's prophetic. Encrypted signals from the shadows of the garden. We dig where the dirt got secrets, no parting. Microphone alchemist, scriptures with a twist. Peep the frequency, seeds in the mist. We drop bars like plagues, revelations in the cadence. Broadcasting truth while they trapped in surveillance. Wisdom with a watchman's blade. Fourth watch style while your whole system fade. Blood moons, Nephilim, echoes in the pine. Sasquatch stomping through the fault lines of time. We ain't mainstream, we ancient stream. Cipher with the prophets, decode the dream. So if you tuned in, better guard your mind. It's broadcasting seeds and we breaking the design.
Welcome back to Broadcasting Seeds. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and tonight we're stepping into one of the strangest corners of the Bible, the book of Numbers. And no, it's not just census lists and dusty laws. It's got a talking donkey that sees into the spirit world before its master does. It's got fiery serpents slithering into camp, biting people until a bronze snake on a pole mysteriously cures them. Wildernesses that aren't empty. They're battlegrounds where the natural and supernatural collide. But here's the thing. If you look at these stories only as weird, like Bible trivia, you'll miss the bigger picture. What if these aren't just tales of the past? What if they're windows into how the unseen world still breaks into ours? Because every culture on earth has serpent legends. You've got winged snakes in Arabia. You've got feathered serpent gods in Mesoamerica, like dragon this in Asia, right? Every age has whispered that animals sense what humans can't, like dogs warning of earthquakes, livestock refusing to move before UFO sightings, pets staring at empty corners like they're watching something step through, and frankly barking and snarling at it sometimes. And when you layer that on top of Numbers, you don't just get a campfire story, you get a supernatural pattern. You get cryptid encounters that rhyme with biblical serpents. You get governments obsessed with censuses and data, just like ancient kings tracked numbers to control their people. You get the wilderness, whether it's Sinai, Skinwalker Ranch, or the dark corners of your own life, becoming the proving ground for battles that most people never see. So tonight, we're not just retelling Numbers. We're reading it like a field manual for strange encounters, talking donkeys, fiery serpents, cosmic census rolls. Yeah. And the unsettling possibility that the wilderness is still alive, still contested, and still home to things that don't fit neatly into science or Sunday school. If this episode hits you, do me a solid, like, share, and review the podcast. That's how this show grows, how these seeds spread, and how more people start asking the questions that keep you up at night. So grab your canteen, lace up your boots, and step into the desert, because the wilderness fights back. Section 1, the donkey, the talking donkey, when beasts see the invisible. So, let's start with the story that feels like it belongs in a supernatural witness testimony file. Balaam's donkey. Numbers 22 tells of Balaam, a mercenary prophet for hire. He's on the road, ready to curse Israel for a fat paycheck. But his donkey suddenly veers off the path. crushes his foot against a wall, and finally just collapses. Balaam loses it. He beats the poor animal until something wild happens. The donkey opens its mouth and says, "Why are you hitting me? Haven't I carried you faithfully all these years?" It sounds absurd. A talking donkey? But here's the kicker. This wasn't a hallucination or parable. The text says the donkey saw what Balaam didn't. An angel of the Lord, sword drawn, blocking the road. The seer was blind, the beast was awake. Now let's pursue and tilt our broadcasting seeds lens over this, all right? Animals seeing what humans don't is not new. Pet owners know the drill. Their dog growls in an empty hallway. Cats stare fixed at the ceiling like something's hovering there. Indigenous lore is full of stories where animals act as sentinels, sounding alarms when spirits move through the land. Even cryptid encounters echo this. Bigfoot sightings, where dogs refuse to enter the woods. Cattle mutilation cases where herds panic and bolt hours before strange lights appear in the sky. So maybe Balaam's donkey isn't a joke. Maybe it's a data point in a much older pattern. Creatures sensing the invisible long before humans catch up. And if that's true, what else are we missing because we don't want to look foolish? Here's where the unsettling edge comes in. Balaam, a man hired for spiritual vision, was too blind and stubborn to see what was standing in front of him. He's beating the very thing saving his life. Should hit like a gut punch. How often do we silence the warnings because they come from a place that we don't respect? The kid who asks a sharp question. The friend who sees through the charade. The natural world that keeps signaling danger while we pave right over it. And let's plant this seed. If a donkey could be a mouthpiece for the supernatural once, what's stopping the same thing from happening again? Are we so sure animals don't still bear witness, seeing the clash of realms while we scroll past TikToks and news feeds? The wilderness is not quiet. The beasts still bray. The only question is, are we listening? Or are we just beating them back into silence? Section 2, the fiery serpents and the bronze pole. It's a strange cure for a deadly bite. So Numbers 21 is where things take a hard left from weird to terrifying. Israel's camp explodes into chaos as fiery serpents slither in, biting people, leaving them to die in waves. The word fiery in Hebrew, seraph, can mean burning venom, but it's also the root of seraphim, fiery celestial beings. So, what exactly are we talking about here? Ordinary desert snakes or something stranger? Creatures that straddle that line between biology and the supernatural. Cultures across the globe echo this motif. The Egyptians carved winged serpents on temple walls. Arabian historians like Herodotus described flying snakes in the desert near the Red Sea. In Mesoamerica, you've got Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who was both a destroyer and a bringer of life. I mean, even in Appalachian folklore, there are whispers of glowing serpents, seen slithering in river valleys. Different times, different places, but always the serpent, fiery and otherworldly. And then comes the bizarre cure. God tells Moses, make a bronze serpent, mount it on a pole, raise it high. And if someone gets bitten, all they have to do is look at it and they'll live. Imagine that scene. People writhing on the ground, venom coursing through them, while a strange metallic effigy gleams in the desert sun. They look up, desperate, and somehow they're healed. That's not medicine. That's something else. A ritual. A prototype of faith technology. Maybe. An act where obedience and focus override the chaos of venom. The New Testament ties this directly to Christ, saying, as Moses lifted the serpent, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. But even outside Christian theology, this looks like a strange supernatural law at work. Healing through paradox. And here's where the unsettling piece comes in. That bronze serpent eventually became an idol. Centuries later, King Hezekiah had to destroy it because people were worshiping the sign instead of the God behind it. They even named it Nehushtan. Humans have a way of clinging to the tool and forgetting the source. We do it now with technology and politics and even medicine. We worship the fix instead of the one who can actually heal. And maybe, just maybe, these fiery serpents weren't random punishment. Maybe they were a breach event. Think of like Skinwalker Ranch or the Chichuan Desert. Places where the paranormal and the physical blur. What if these serpents were the same? An incursion from that thin place, burning reminders that Israel wasn't walking through empty sand, but through contested territory. So here's the seed. What if the fiery serpents are still with us? Not always in scales and fangs, but in the poisons that spread through cultures, lies that burn through minds, and addictions that sink their teeth in and won't let go. Maybe the cure is the same. Look up. Lift your eyes beyond the bite to something that forces you to trust what doesn't make sense. The serpents slither, the venom spreads. The question is, where are you looking when it does? Section 3. The wilderness as a battleground, when the desert fights back. If you zoom out, every strange event in Numbers happens in the same setting, the wilderness. And that's not just scenery. The desert is a character, and it doesn't play nice. It strips people bare. It exposes weaknesses. It pushes you to the edge until the unseen starts pressing in. Think about it. Moses meets God in a burning bush out in the wilderness. Elijah hides there and later hears God in a whisper. John the Baptist lives on locusts and honey in it. And Jesus himself is led into the wilderness to fast and square off against who? Satan. Over and over, the desert becomes the proving ground. Not the temple, not the palace, the wilderness. And it's not just in the Bible. Across cultures, the wilderness is the place where weird things happen. I'm going to bring it up again. Look at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. strange lights, cryptid sightings, cattle mutilations, or the deserts of Nevada, home to Groom Lake and Area 51, where whispers of hidden tech and shadow projects swirl. Even go to Australia in the outback has dreamtime stories of serpent beings roaming dry riverbeds. The barren places of Earth carry the same fingerprint. When human noise dies down, other voices break through. Here's the unsettling part. Israel thought their battle was with thirst and hunger, but the wilderness was testing something deeper. Allegiance, obedience, and faith. Every complaint, every rebellion, every serpent bite was part of a larger war. The people weren't just fighting the environment, they were fighting forces waiting to exploit their weakness. Now shift that to our modern deserts. They don't always look like dunes and scorpions, and sometimes they look like cultural emptiness, like doom scrolling at 2 a.m., like psychological burn pits where hope evaporates. Sometimes they look like small towns gutted by addiction or endless feeds engineered to drain your spirit. That's wilderness too. And the battles there are just as real. So here's the seed I'll plant. The desert is alive and it fights back. You can't go through wilderness seasons untouched. Either you get forged by them or you get consumed. And maybe the real danger isn't the lack of water or bread, but the serpents waiting for you to drop your guard. The wilderness doesn't hand out participation trophies. It decides who's awake and who's asleep. The question isn't whether you'll enter it. You already have. The question is, when the desert bares its teeth, will you see it as a proving ground or as a graveyard? Section 4, Numbers and the Unseen War. More than a census list. So, let's be honest. Most people flip through numbers and their eyes glaze over. Page after page of genealogies, censuses, tribe tallies. It feels like feels like the Bible's DMV paperwork. But here's the thing. Those lists weren't busy work. They were roll calls for war. Every name mattered. Every head counted. Israel wasn't just wandering. They were marching through contested territory like an army on the move. The text says the tribes camped in a precise formation around the tabernacle, the glowing hub of God's presence. Imagine it, a wilderness staging ground, 12 tribal banners flying in the dust, an ordered camp radiating out from a supernatural headquarters. To the naked eye, maybe it looked like tents in the sand, but in the unseen, it was a battle formation. This is where broadcasting seeds lenses, where our lens zooms in. Consensus and list aren't neutral. Ancient rulers counted people to measure control, to levy taxes, and to draft armies. Fast forward, and it hasn't changed that much. The Romans used consensus for domination. The British Empire did it for colonial control. And today, governments and corporations don't just count bodies, they count data. Every swipe, every search, every single click. It's all part of a modern census. The algorithms don't just want your name, they want your allegiance. So when we read numbers through modern eyes, The parallel is eerie. Israel was being counted to see who would stand in the war. We are being counted now, every day, in ways we don't even notice. Your phone pings your location. Your smart devices listen. You're reduced to data points in someone else's war room. The only question is, what formation are you standing in? And here's where it gets even darker. In Numbers, rebellion against God's order had brutal consequences. Korah's crew swallowed alive. Spies struck with plague. Entire groups cut off. The point wasn't cruelty, it was that the stakes were cosmic. Order versus chaos, life versus annihilation. And maybe it still is. Numbers isn't boring bookkeeping. It's a glimpse at the architecture of an unseen war. Back then, names on a scroll determined who carried spears in the desert. Today, names in a database determine who gets nudged, censored, or amplified in the cultural battlefield. And just like in the wilderness, pretending you're neutral doesn't make you safe. It just makes you unprepared. So maybe the next time you roll your eyes at a list or shrug off another term of service checkbox, you should ask, whose census am I in? Who's counting me? And for what war? Section 5, Seeds in the Wilderness, what it means to us right now. By now, you can see it. Numbers isn't about dusty wanderings and bureaucratic lists. It's about survival in the wilderness that was never empty. Israel thought they were just battling sand, thirst, and boredom. In reality, they were brushing up against entities, forces, and patterns that still stalk us even today. The donkey saw the angel before the prophet did. The beasts still sense what we ignore. Maybe that's why your dog barks at the tree line before a Sasquatch encounter, or why livestock panic before UFO sightings. If creation is still groaning, then animals may be the first alarm bells. Question is, do we listen? Or do we beat the donkey until it shuts up? The fiery serpents, they've slithered into every age. All right. Ancient winged snake myths, Mesoamerican feathered gods, glowing serpents in the Appalachian valleys, they all rhyme with the desert serpents of Numbers. And today, their venom looks different. It's not always fangs in your ankle. Sometimes it's propaganda worming through your feed. Division, poisoning families, addictions, burning holes in whole communities. The serpents never left. They just changed their skin. The wilderness itself, it's still the battleground. It shows up in empty deserts where black projects hide, in forests where cryptids wander, and in cultural wastelands where meaning collapses. In those barren places, the veil thins. People report strange lights. They report voices, also shadows and presences, because the wilderness doesn't let you hide behind comfort. It's raw. It's testing ground. It's where you find out who you are and what's waiting for you. And the census? Let's not kid ourselves. We're still being counted, not by scrolls, but by data farms, surveillance grids, and systems that track what side you're standing on. Just like in Numbers, it isn't neutral. It's alignment. In the cosmic war, everyone is in someone's formation. So here's the seed that I want to plant. Don't despise your wilderness. Don't run from it, because it's in the wilderness where the strange things reveal themselves, and where faith, real faith, gets forged. Balaam's donkey, the fiery serpents, the census rolls, they weren't just stories for then. They're templates for now. And maybe that's the unsettling truth. The wilderness never went away. It's around us. It's in us. And if we open our eyes, you'll see it's still alive with strangeness. Angels with drawn swords, serpents with fire, the battle raging for your allegiance. The question is, when the wilderness presses in, will you lift your eyes, or will you let the venom take hold? Numbers in the now. Wilderness never left. All right, so here we are. The book of Numbers. What most people write off as the boring middle child of the Old Testament is anything but boring. It's a record of thin places where the veil between the natural and supernatural ripped open. A donkey with wide eyes, wide enough to see what a prophet couldn't. Fiery serpents that bite like myths come alive. Wildernesses that aren't empty at all, but they're contested ground. Census lists that double as war rosters in a conflict bigger than sand and stone. And if you've been tracking with me, you see it. The pattern didn't stop in the desert. They never do. Animals still sense what they do. Serpents still show up with different skins. The wilderness still tests us, and every age, every generation is still being counted, still being sorted for a war that most people pretend isn't happening. So here's the last seed I'll plant today. Don't dismiss the strange. Don't explain away the bizarre as just stories. Because sometimes the strangest stories are the most honest about what's really going on. Numbers is a warning and a roadmap. If you learn to read it, you'll start spotting the donkey, the serpents, the wildernesses, and the census in your own life. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. If this episode stirred something in you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who can handle the strangeness, and leave a review wherever you listen. This is how Broadcasting Seeds grows and how these questions spread. Again, I'm Bennett Tanton, and this has been Broadcasting Seeds. Stay awake, stay watchful, and remember, the wilderness isn't empty. It's alive, and it's waiting.
Out in the desert where the silence burns, the donkey spoke while the prophet turned. Serpents slithered, fire in their eyes, bronze on a pole under haunted skies. The wilderness still speaks, can you hear it call? Where the veil grows thin and the shadows crawl. The numbers are counted, the serpents bite. Lift your eyes to the fire in the night. Every census is a war, every name a fight. The unseen armies gather out of sight. Dogs still bark at what we can't see.
deep within.